Hi, Commander Runningcloud here. This is not an exopolitical diplomacy broadcast, but it is a Commander Runningcloud log broadcast because I'm looking to the future. I'm looking to the future. Okay. Um, in my present, I believe that we are dealing with mitigating the bioweapons. I believe that that's something that's happening. I can't be positive, as you can see, I'm still infected, still dealing with the disease, but I've been feeling better somehow. I've been feeling better. Let's see. And that's great. Now, no sooner did I finish expressing my shock and surprise that a shine bomb, a woman with a very masculine voice, who doesn't look Mexican at all. I got to look at her again. She doesn't look Mexican at all. So it's a pretty bold move to put a shine bomb in as the president of Mexico to replace President Obrador in a state, in a place in the world where machismo and la malinque and pocho are all important cultural concepts. So when we look at what happens when Europeans substitute themselves for the indigenous races and they become the government, we find the next thing we know is that country is a part of a supply chain. And that country loses control of all of its assets. And we find ourselves being forced to be the consumers for things we can produce for ourselves or things we don't want. Okay? Now, this topic is so no sooner do I get over that horrible shock, right? Then I find Alex Jones crying. And it's not funny at all to me because I don't know how he's held up this long under that kind of prosecution, legal prosecution. Because the very idea that that any court would give some people $1 million because their feelings got hurt is unbelievable. I, a legitimate complainant with a legitimate complaint for the courts, can't get standing in the courts in my own country. But these Europeans in Skull and Bones country, Connecticut, can drag Alex Jones off the platform and put him through this much torture. I really missed Alex's broadcasts while he was gone. Because Alex Jones, if you look at the truth-telling media, the ones of us that are actually on the edge, really telling the truth, as a team, Alex Jones was our trainer. He was our team leader. Alex Jones was so very important to me. Very important to me. Because I had to say things that, people would want to kill me for saying. Now, I guess I'm lucky that I didn't get my inheritance, right? Because if I had gotten my inheritance, they would have put me through court in that particular way, like they did Trump and Jones and Guglielmi and even Cohen. Because they're just doing things the way things have always been done. But the judgment against Alex Jones was absolutely stunning for a case where only people's feelings got hurt. And you say, wow, those people's feelings are worth quite a lot. But all of the complainants in Flint, Michigan, whose water was contaminated, well, their complaints weren't worth much at all. And who was dumping all those sophisticated weapons into Chicago, and who was making sure that Chicago youth had nothing to live for, no economic future outside of crime. and supporting a private prison industry there in Illinois? What about their feelings? What about those parents? But here is something else. Not long after the Sandy Hook, not long after the Sandy Hook, Connecticut shooting event, Juan Luis and I went to Sandy Hook. We drove all the way to Sandy Hook because he wanted to look at it. And we drove right by the school. There were no wreaths, no signs. That place was dead. Sandy Hook was dead. It was like one of those towns where New Yorkers have their second home, but nobody really lives there. It felt like that. The business district wasn't too far from the school. There were no wreaths, no mourning people. And I'm a psychic, but I'm not a good psychic. I'm not good psychic. But we didn't feel any disturbances. That town was dead. So when Juan said, "This is Sandy Hook," I was shocked. I said, "But I'm not feeling anything here." You see? But Juan wanted to go there because he knew that it was not quite what it was said to be. That what they said happened maybe didn't actually happen, just like Alex Jones said. But one way or another, they shouldn't have gotten standing in court. They shouldn't have gotten court time. But do you want to know the real reason why they did? The same reason why Donald Trump was prosecuted. Because we've got a lot of European nationalists that are using the judiciary branches of government to prosecute and persecute their political enemies. Alex Jones first made his mark when he went to Bohemian Grove and filmed them. Filmed all these elites like Joe Biden running around naked in the woods, screaming at each other and being very primal. And he broadcasted a video that I think 2 girls took of a Skull and Bones initiation where the Yale students are getting in a coffin. They're kissing the skull of Geronimo, an American that was killed by the Europeans, that helped the Europeans assume control of more American land. So they like to honor it. But you know how much Europeans love memorials? Tie a yellow ribbon around the old oak tree. There wasn't a single memorial in Sandy Hook, not one. It was a completely dead town that didn't seem to have a resident population. It was not a thriving town. Even in the stores, the hardware store, the other store, we didn't see any signs of mourning or any signs that a horrible event had happened there. But even if it did, you have to ask yourself, if it really happened the way the Europeans in Connecticut, Sandy Hook, said it happened, why did Alex Jones look closer at them? I mean, he's not the kind of man that's going to just waste his time chasing dead ends. Alex Jones is a man that uncovered the fact that Antifa was showing up and fighting, and that Antifa was a branch of the elite Europeans, part of the hidden hand, as David Icke calls them, the hidden hand. But when I was starting my career as a whistleblower, as an American informant, as a freedom fighter, as an investigative journalist creating documentaries for social media, when I started my career doing that, Alex Jones was at point. He was our point man. So to me, from the very beginning, when they went after Alex Jones, it was a political persecution. From the very beginning, to me, it seemed that Alex was uncovering all their schemes. He was finding out that Black Lives Matter wasn't black people. It was Antifa trained people fighting Black Lives Matter people. He was the one who was uncovering, saying, hey, they're wearing black hoodies, but those are Europeans. Okay? Finding out that Susan Rosenbaum, a globalist Jew who was in the American legal system as a true, honest to God insurrectionist, not a person saying, oh, that election. You see? But things have gotten so far in terms of the corruption of America that our entire judicial branch of government really doesn't give a F-U-C-K what you think about them and what they do. And they don't even try to pretend that they're working for me or you. They want you to know we are working for the elite. And now they've moved to the point. It reminds me so much of what the Russian author Kafka, The Trial. Was it Kafka that wrote The Trial? It reminds me so much of Russian authors that were writing when communism was first crushing the individual down into the system. I have a legitimate complaint about the misadministration of a legally drafted trust, about failures to file wills by an Illinois state representative. That is a law case. That would be protecting an American, a regular American. I have a case against Harvard University and Henry Louis Gates and the Ford Foundation for stealing my outline and my essay and giving it to Brent Edwards, who stole the research material and wrote the book based on my outline. That's a legal case. That's a case where the law could actually do something to protect the future prosperity and productiveness of real Americans. But no, I couldn't get in the court. I couldn't get a case. I couldn't get a lawyer. In Oklahoma, when I'm trying to get titles to my land in Oklahoma, the lawyer wouldn't even let me sit down in his office. He wants to talk to me outside his office because he doesn't want to talk to Indians inside of his office. That would have been a law case. But a lot of rich Europeans who say you hurt our feelings, all our children were killed and you said it was a lie, and then you get $1 billion, you get to financially destroy a good man, a brave man, an American hero because he hurt your feelings. You didn't lose 1 cent, not one thin dime. I've lost millions by not getting my inheritance. But those Europeans lost no money. Their feelings got hurt. Their feelings got hurt, so they were given permission by the courts to persecute and prosecute and hurt Alex Jones. So you have to ask why. You know, it's not just about their feelings getting hurt. They stopped Alex Jones from publishing for a long time. Alex Jones just got back recently and started publishing. I mean, all the publicity, you know, seeing him cry made me so upset because I think he deserves that feeling that he's got because they've come after him. They've persecuted him. It's been worse than what Jesus got. Jesus, 3 days. Okay? Alex Jones, he's been caught up for years. Do you know that when you're in a lawsuit like that, you can't sleep at night because you're worrying? And when you know that it's a political persecution and that you're being politically persecuted, so anything can happen, then your fear is just off the hook because you know you're in an abusive system. You know that you're being politically prosecuted. And when you can't even convince the rest of the nation that thinks it's free, you can't even convince the rest of the nation that thinks it's free that you've been fighting for them on the front lines. And just like mockingbirds, they just mock you and laugh at you and say, oh. And they never once go back and judge the fact that hurt feelings are just not worthy. Any more than a porn star prosecuting a president. But they don't care. They're taking joy in the perversion. They're taking joy in our innocence and our naivete, which they've spent a lot of time to drive down. And we're all looking and we're saying, oh my God. We saw the fact that the January 6th insurrection was supported by the Capitol Police. We saw the Capitol policemen walking with the protester, defining the places where there'd be. And we knew from the Alex Jones reports that there are professional protesters that infiltrate legitimate protests to amp up the violence, amp up the violence, amp up the violence. You know, Farsight, Aziz Brown, Courtney Brown's son, recently published one of their June publications about what they see happening at the Democratic and Republican national conventions. And they see riots. Future forecasters, I was listening and seeing what they see. They see mushroom cloud atomic bombs, nuclear bombs. So we've got good psychics, good forecasters, good futurists predicting that things are going to get even worse than they are right now. Even worse. But when we have men like Alex Jones reporting, at least we can understand what's coming, and maybe we can even stop it. When I went to InfoWars tonight to see how Alex is doing, he was interviewing a Russian who had been in the American prison, the Russian that was exchanged for Tiffany Greaves. You know, the Phoenix Suns basketball player that got arrested in Russia for marijuana that's legal in America, but she got arrested and put in prison. And then there was a big deal about it, and she had to be released in exchange for a Russian political prisoner held in the United States. Well, Alex was interviewing him on the show, on his InfoWars show. And they're talking about nuclear war. But here's something that they're forgetting. The ETs have said that nuclear war disturbs other dimensions, and that these crazy Earthians, these warmongering, violent rulers of everything, are not going to be allowed to have another nuclear war. That when they set off, when Werner von Braun, Elon von Musk set off the nuclear bomb in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the repercussions of that, like a pebble in the pond, went beyond this universe, beyond this dimension. And they're not going to let that happen again. So I'm not afraid that we're going to have a nuclear war. I don't think that the good ETs are going to let that happen. And with the dimensions of existence that are focusing on Earth right now, I'm pretty sure that they have the power to stop it. I'm pretty sure they do. But who's going to stop the persecution of Americans like Alex Jones, like Donald Trump, like Silver Rain Runningcloud, myself? Who's going to stop it? Are we just going to let it go on till it gets more and more and more powerful, and then we don't have any power at all in this country? Alex Jones completely deflated the whole Black Lives Matter Antifa attempts to disrupt our society because he uncovered them. He and that young man, he's grown a beard now, but that young man that used to report with him, I felt so bad for him when they silenced Alex Jones, because Alex Jones was afraid to do any more reports because of the punishments that they were dealing to him. And I also think that the judge had put some kind of gag orders on him so that he wasn't allowed to share what happened. You know, those non-disclosure agreements, like the ones that I had to sign with Brunswick Corporation, that allowed Sheldon L. Epstein to get away with intellectual property theft for decades. They don't really serve anyone, do they? And when we think that those are designed to protect the competitive edge of foreign-owned corporations, and we know that foreign-owned corporations are not our friends, they're involved in creating monopolies, they're involved in paying investors and keeping the stocks up, and they don't care what happens to you and me. They just want to get more of us drawn in, more customers with no choices. And that's not capitalism. That's not capitalism at all. So why would we want to protect the intellectual property of our enemies, of predators? And why would we want to protect intellectual property instead of having our children learn? How can we advance our society if our society will not let us learn the technology? They want to keep it to themselves and just reward the people they like and punish the people they don't like. Well, I was surprised that Alex Jones was able to function as long as he did without being caught by the European nationalists. But I believe that he was under the radar for so long that it wasn't until social media became so common and global that Alex Jones became a threat big enough for the Europeans to use Sandy Hook to come after him. Free speech isn't free when your government wants to rob you. Free speech comes with political consequences. And I just have to say thank you so much to my team. You know, I haven't enjoyed being poor when I know I am rich. But the fact that I don't have any money has enabled me to say whatever I want to. And yes, they came after me physically and tried to and hurt me, hurt my body, and damaged me again and again. And the psychological terrorism has been really terrible. But they didn't get my money. They didn't get a cent because I don't have my money. Okay? And while I can't say that living, a prisoner's life this past year plus has been fun, I can't say that I'm happy that Honda repossessed my car after Geico refused to pay off on the theft. And Geico repossessed a salvage vehicle filled with rust and used their national distribution network of franchises. A franchise is like an LLC. It gives the mother company all the protection it needs. So if you're a Honda franchise owner and you want to steal the cars in your neighborhood and keep a book of all the cars so that when you need parts, you can just drive over to Silver Rain's house and take those parts off of her vehicle. You need new tires? Silver Rain just bought new tires, and I marked one with red. Why don't you go over there and get yourself one? And that's how they handled my car. I saw them stealing things. I'd see one day my anti-lock brakes were red, and then the next day they were back to black again because they had marked the part of the vehicle that they wanted stolen. They marked the tire with red, and then it's gone because they mark what wants to be stolen. When I had the Honda hybrid with the electronic, what do you call the front glass? Windshield? It had a windshield filled with fine electronics. Well, the road gang thugs used their little BB shooters to break that glass. And when they replaced that glass, they replaced it with just plain thermal glass, not the electrified glass. And they just used all those components. They just stole those components. And that's a whole side industry that's going on. Now, that would be something good for courts to take up, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that be a better thing for courts to take up than trying to find Americans driving after they've had a couple of glasses of wine at their baby's birthday party, and then they're driving the long way home in Arizona? And Mark Ainley gets them and prosecutes them for DUIs. Mark Ainley made his career on DUI prosecutions, drunk driving among the Americans. And I know from firsthand experience that you didn't have to be drinking or drunk to get pulled over for drunk driving. But I know from my experiences in Scottsdale, a Scottsdale politician started tracking me and following me around. And when I saw him in his red sports car with his cocktail, drinking, getting drunk, and I'm driving through the hills of Scottsdale, I just pulled over into a driveway. And he, following me, came around. And when he sees me, he's shocked, And I'm looking at him, and he's got a drink in his hand. And he's one of the politicians. I can't remember his name right now. It's been a while since I did the exposés in Arizona. But I got punished for that. The law enforcement kidnapped me. The law enforcement put me in jail. And it was very traumatic. And it left things open for the Honda dealership, the Arrowhead Honda dealership, to act out and out steal my car. Because they thought that Sue Ann Decker and Tina Ainley were going to be putting me in a mental institution and never letting me out. They thought I would never be able to catch up with the theft of my car. So when I came to Texas, my whole way driving out of Phoenix, I had the road gangs throwing pebbles at my car, shooting the little BB guns that they used to break the windshields at my car. But I'd learned a lot from the road gangs. I knew how to drive in their blind spot, near the margin, near the shoulder, and then get so close behind them that they can't aim at me. But despite all that, they weren't able to fracture my windshield. But when I tried to get my windshield replaced here in Houston, Texas, Geico put me in their fraud department and then re-traumatized me about the kidnapping. They wouldn't fix the back window that the Arizona State Trooper busted out when I refused to surrender to no charges. And he busted it out to break me out of the car. It was horrible. It was horrible, but it was nothing compared to what Alex Jones went through. Alex Jones went through years under legal prosecution. Years he was not able to practice his craft. For years, we were denied his intelligence. And that made it really hard for me when we lost Alex. Because Alex was one of the people that gave me courage and inspiration. Alex was one of those people that said, you've got to tell the truth. The American citizens deserve to know what you found out. You can't be a coward, Silver Rain. You've got to be like Alex. And the other, reporters. I can't remember the name. I almost had his name, that young man that reported with Alex. That young man was so brave and so bold. But Antifa, disrupting Antifa and making Antifa ineffective, wasn't the only wonderful news that Alex Jones reported. When he did the reports and I saw, the replays of him in Bohemian Grove, and I heard all those Europeans screaming in the woods. And when he replayed the Skull and Bones initiation, I saw that too. Now it's really funny because the African American Student Center, undergraduate center, is right behind the Skull and Bones Temple on Yale University. So I'd walked by there about 1 million times, but I never knew that it was a Skull and Bones, because there are other mausoleum-like permanently locked looking buildings on the Yale campus. But I didn't know that they were secret society hideouts. I had no idea that all that was just right inside, because I walked by there 1 million times. In fact, the film center was right across the street. And when I took a course in film, I was in the film viewing auditorium once a week, right across the street from Skull and Bones. But of course, we all knew about Skull and Bones and how people got tapped out to be in Skull and Bones. And we all knew how Skull and Bones created a lot of European nationalist corporate leaders and presidents and politicians We knew that if you got tapped out to be in Skull and Bones, you were a made man, as the Italians in the mafia like to say. You're made. I'm a made man in the Italian mafia. I am. They made me in Las Vegas. I know, that's funny, isn't it? Because you wouldn't think I had any power. But I think, and sometimes I forget that I do. And sometimes I think I must have imagined these things, or misinterpreted the clues that I've gotten. But then I think about what happened to Alex Jones and Donald Trump. And I think that if I was any bigger or more visible, I would really be getting hurt much more than they've been able to hurt me. You see, I'm so small. I'm so insignificant. Nobody's ever following me that anybody can see. Nobody's ever watching my broadcasts as far as anybody can see. Even on Facebook and Twitter, nobody's liking my stuff. Nobody's watching me. And that's been where my strength and freedom lay. That's why I've been able to continue to operate and do my job and follow my training, because I'm under the radar. And I think that Alex was under the radar for so long, but once he got into social media and people like me can see him and then follow him and be a part of the force of liberation for the minds of the Americans, the truth tellers, oh my God. Oh my God. Right? Travolta style. Oh my God. So watching Alex Jones reach that point and express it, I could really understand it. I mean, there have been times when I've been locked in this room, knowing I'm a political prisoner here, knowing how the corporations were able to violate the public trust and rob me, knowing how my own brother, a politician, was able to violate a trust, a legal trust written by a judge and lawyer. And when I think about how Tina Ainley was able to try to destroy me using her court, my team got me out. My team got me out of there. My team got me out of there. And my team is anonymous. I don't even know who they are. I just know how to follow the signs. I mean, I've known who one or two of them are along the way. And I just want to thank you guys again. I want to thank you guys so much. Your plan for using me and deploying me has been nothing short of brilliant. I have really been effective because I'm under the radar. And I want to thank you for protecting me like that. Now, a lot of people, if you watch the Alex Jones report with the Russian agent, and at the time, the news reporters were saying that as Russia moves closer to becoming a part of creating World War III violence on the ground, because it's already World War III as far as I'm concerned. Okay, they've already hurt me, attacked me, damaged me, declared me their enemy. So it's been World War III for a while as far as I'm concerned now. Because as soon as they started violating the principles of American citizenship, and I don't mean, the European overlays. I mean the fact that all Americans are created equal. All Americans have a voice in the way we are governed. All Americans have the right to prosperity. All of Americans have the right to be rewarded for their contributions. And all of the Americans have legal recourse when they've been damaged. That America, the real America, not the overlay America that the Mexicans are about to find out about with their shine bomb. They're about to get shine bombed there in Mexico, where they're going to lose control of their assets. Because if you can say to the world, shine bomb is the president of Mexico, then you are truly fearless. You have truly reached the fearless point where the people are not going to stop you because you're violating their moral principles. You've already got the courts all tied up with the corrupt kind of people that would make a judgment against Alex Jones, make a judgment against Donald Trump, just to satisfy those that wish to rob and steal from us. So once you get a shine bomb woman with a deep manly voice running Mexico, the next thing you can expect is for all the European corporations that don't already have a seat at the table to start rushing in to strip Mexico of its assets. They'll be mining in Mexico. They'll be making silicone chips in Mexico. They'll be tearing those mountains up, tearing them up, just like they do the archaeological sites in Utah. And I documented this. One 4th of July, I actually was in Utah, and I actually took a picture of a European corporation behind a fence on Indian American land, American Indian land, and they were drilling, they were building. And I had already passed through real Americans and said, how come you all don't make a store up here? You need to make a store. There's no place to buy any food here. And they said, we're not allowed to. By the Europeans won't let us develop our land. And then when you're driving away and the first gas station you see has liquor all in the window, shiny, shiny bottles of liquor. No food, no other shops, just a gas station convenience store with plenty of liquor, right? Because everybody knows that Indians are drunks. Ha, ha, ha. Right? And that's why Mark Ainley, God rest his soul, was able to make an entire prosperous living prosecuting Americans for DUI and then going to Austria, home of the Nazis, to die. That's the husband of Tina Ainley from Vanderbilt University, or Vera Kuczynski from the front cover of the Rolling Stone magazine, related to a Yale student suicide and homosexuality. That's where she went to find her new university, her new academic home. Because higher education, those are just forts for invading Europeans. Those are just places where Marxism is taught and admired, and people are taught how to invade other countries and think it's okay and think it's all right. I wonder what Alex Jones would have been able to accomplish if they hadn't silenced him using the judicial system. I wonder if we would be on the brink of World War III if Alex Jones had not been stopped from revealing and telling the truth about the little feints and tricks and false flags that go on in our society. Alex didn't even create the concept of a false flag. David Icke was the first intellectual journalist that I heard reporting on false flag events, if I remember right. So everybody knew that public events were being staged to manipulate public opinion. We all knew that, didn't we? Some people think that the Democratic National Convention in Chicago in 1968 that disrupted the Sly and the Family Stone concert was a false flag event. So, there are other false flag events, but I visited Sandy Hook not long after their big tragedy, and there was absolutely no signs of tragedy having occurred there, and there was no psychic energy. It was a town that seemed like the kind of town that New Yorkers would retreat to when they want to leave Wall Street, a place that they would take their children for the summer, like Goshen, Connecticut. A lot of people in Woodbridge had second homes in Goshen, Connecticut, by the lake, so that they could leave New Haven area, Woodbridge, affluent suburb, and go to Goshen, which was more rural and more of a country estate. So this idea of Sandy Hook being a bedroom town, they even call them bedroom towns, for New Yorkers, really wasn't very far from the impression I got there. So I believe Alex Jones had every right to try to uncover a fraud there. And for those people to say you're hurting our feelings, you're traumatizing us with the memory of our dead children, our murdered children. Well, there are plenty of people in America that have lost children. Plenty. But they're not getting paid $1 billion for it. You need to grow up. $1 billion is not going to bring back your babies. And you might also ask yourself, why? Why would all those people spend so much time being malicious and destroying Alex Jones if there were good people? They lost their children, and they're going to spend the rest of their lives making Alex Jones suffer, stealing all of his money, using court for legitimization, and then threatening to take his empire away? How does that satisfy any of their pain of loss of their children? How does that make society better so that other children don't get lost? Why didn't they care about the children in Flint, Michigan? Why didn't they go in there and say, you want to know what? A class action suit is just going to make the lawyers rich. And all these people, they're not getting relief. They're still drinking contaminated water. It's causing brain damage. Let's use our love for our children to love the children of America and improve their lives. They could have done something like that. That would have been something beautiful, something admirable. But no, they decided to go forward and honor the memory of their children by using the American courts to persecute and torture an American hero. That alone, to me, speaks volumes about the lies that have been told in Sandy Hook. But just like the judiciary arm of government in America has said, if you dare to say that the 2020 election was rigged, we're going to treat you like an insurrectionist. And you could go to jail for the rest of your life. We can just come pick you up like the Gestapo, like the jackboot wearing Russians enforcing communism during Stalin and Mussolini. We could Mussolini and Stalin you, and Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin, and Hitler you. Force you to obey. You will obey. Free speech comes at a cost, and your cost could be your life. We all know that they have no rights to get such a huge judgment against Alex Jones. We all can see it for exactly what it is, and you know it. You know it. You have to be stupid not to see through this. You'd have to be stupid not to see through the fact that the European nationalists are using the American government judiciary to prosecute and persecute people that fight for the freedom of American citizens. And we're just watching, and we're parroting and echoing what we said, and we're listening to the news. And now we're watching them take over Mexico. We didn't even get to learn about our neighbor. They kept us in the dark about Mexican politics, Mexican people, Mexican culture. Only thing we heard about Mexico was illegal aliens and criminals and poverty. I didn't know that Mexico City was bigger than New York City until I met Luis Moretes at the University of Massachusetts. And he was from Mexico City. And he told me Mexico City is bigger than New York. So they didn't teach us anything about our neighbors to the south or our neighbors to the north because they don't want us to see ourselves as the Americans. And I'm including the Europeans too because Alex Jones is an European, but he puts America first. To me, that's how you become an American, is when you recognize what America really is, what America really stands for, what the people of America are, not the documents the Europeans created to justify their manifest destiny, their sense of entitlement to our lands and assets. Not that. but the real spirit of America, where we are one big community and we've got enough assets to be rich, but we have mutual respect for each other and a democratic process that lets us all contribute to major decisions being made. This is an America that we haven't seen for a long time. We haven't seen that America since the Europeans managed to overtake the courts, overtake the public broadcasting, overtake law enforcement, overtake real estate, overtake commerce and business. When they were able to occupy the top seats of power in every category, that's when we lost control. That's when we lost all of our power. And now with the courts being frivolous enough to $1 billion because your feelings got hurt, but real Americans with real grievances about not getting their inheritances can't be heard because you want the land. You want to silence the opposition using law as your weapon. And you want to rob the Americans using the denial of the legal process as your weapon. Now, there's just something wrong with that. So I just want to say that I really love Alex Jones. And I think Alex Jones is an extremely important person. And I think that Alex Jones's work launched me. If I had not seen the example of courage in broadcasting from Alex Jones, I don't think I would have found my way here by myself. Dan Pena was also important to me because of his fiery anger. But Dan Pena owns Western Financial Bank. And Dan Pena has been personally responsible for unleashing a lot of psychopaths in the oil and gas industry. So while Daniel Pena has that psychopathic edge of anger and ruthlessness that I needed to encourage me to move forward, I can't say that I admire him. But Alex Jones, I don't have anything against him. I think that he has conducted himself flawlessly. And the fact that we were all denied the benefit of his work for years and years because of the Sandy Hook skull and bones European nationalists and their false flag event. Yeah, so you can't prosecute me. And I can say, oh, Sandy Hook, when I went there, it did look like a false flag. I was shocked that they were claiming that some disaster had been there because there wasn't one flag, there wasn't one cross, there wasn't one picture of a dead kid, there wasn't one black ribbon. It looked like a dead town to me. It looked like a vacation town for Europeans with lots of money, like the Finger Lakes. So that's the end.